How can we improve the business of government in Nigeria? Well, for a start, I suppose you'd have to know how government works, and more importantly, why it oftentimes doesn't work. That should be part of the job of the National Assembly, to ensure that reforms are properly implemented in ways that will improve performance and accountability and help make Nigeria truly great. But this will not be achieved unless the National Assembly is properly across its responsibilities. It's got to understand what government is trying to achieve with its reform programs and also understand the methodology of the reforms. In that regard, the House of Representatives has been holding retreats aimed at educating itself on Tinubu government's tax reform plans and on the Petroleum Industry Act. But that rather begs the question of why the Assembly should pass the PIB without properly understanding every aspect of it. Is this another example of a National Assembly that appears to be removed from and unresponsive to the pressing development needs of the country and the citizenry? Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by Honourable Philip Agbese, Deputy Spokesperson of the House of Representatives and member representing the Ado-Obadibo-Opoku Federal Constituency in Benue State. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
It's a pleasure to have me.
And I haven't completely slaughtered the names.
No, that's fine.
Thank you we really appreciate your being here. Help us understand the point of this retreat or these retreats and the benefits of them, because usually when the National Assembly comes up with anything, most people roll their eyes and say, here we go again, an opportunity to fritter away money.
God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. God bless Speaker Tajuddin Abbas for that great initiative. For me, I'm excited to be part of the Parliament at this point in time. Not just because of the privilege to be the deputy spokesperson of the House, but for the fact that the very things that I yearn for, the motivations to be in Parliament, I see them being implemented. And for that reason, I'm excited. And what the National Assembly, particularly the 10th House of Representatives, under Speaker Tajuddin Abbas is doing, many Nigerians, have christened it Parliament beyond bill and motions. The business of Parliament is a very critical one, and the role of the legislator in every society, is very, very crucial, that it can make or mar that nation, that generation. And as a matter of fact, the Right Honourable Speaker Tajuddin Abbas has come to that reality, that Parliament is supposed to serve as a bridge between the governed and those who govern the nation.
You mean he suddenly woke up and realized that that's what they're supposed to do?
You see, it is one thing for you to know what to do. It is also another thing to have the opportunity. No matter how good or how brilliant you are as a student, you can never pick the chalk to teach until the day the university satisfies you as a teacher. So this is the right opportunity, because this is the time he is presiding over the affairs of the House of Representatives. And what he is doing is to bring all of us together to have that level of understanding. We all came from diverse backgrounds, some from agricultural sector, from engineering. And Providence has brought us together for the purpose of nation building, to make laws no longer, in view of our ethnic affiliation, our religious background, or our political leanings, but in the interest of the overall
But obviously
citizenry.
all those things play a role, don't they?
Yes, they do. But it is when you understand the differences and the need for the unity of purpose that you'll be able to offer much more.
Right.
So
that's the idea.
Yes, that's the idea. So
right.
What Mr. Speaker has done, this is actually not the first time. Because when he came on board as the Right Honourable Speaker of the 10th House of Representatives, Dr. Tajuddin Abbas did promise Nigerians that he is going to return to Nigerians the process of lawmaking. That Nigerians, the common citizens of our countries, those who will enjoy the law and those who will feel the impact of the laws must be part and parcel of the decision-making process. And in his vision, in tandem with the 10th House of Representatives legislative agenda, to as much as possible, rein in the masses, have their views expressed. Remember, every day in this country we talk about the 1999 Constitution. I've heard statements like, it wasn't given to the people by the people. So there is this feeling of contentment by people when they are involved in the process. Because the problem with our country today, it is not the absence of laws. It is for all of us to see that these laws...
To buy into those laws.
To buy into it. And what the Right Honorable Speaker, by and large, the entire Parliament is doing, in the entire National Assembly, the distinguished Senate President was also in attendance at the retreat, is to say, every member must understand the issue. So at that retreat on economic development, we had thematic topics discussed at that forum. And we all came together, to form a consensus on certain issues. So you understand that after 48 hours of learning, 48 hours of engagement, beyond the yeas and the nays, we all agreed on certain issues. And we came together to say, in the interest of our country, let us put behind our political sentiments.
And your differences.
Let's put behind our differences. Let's put behind whatever had divided us during the elections, but to be united by how do we profile possible solutions to the problems that are militating against the country.
Well, I know your
today.
retreat was on the economy, but the context, which I think you've explained very well, is that you are coming to this new awareness that there must be a unity of purpose, and that you guys must come together at one and must properly represent the people who sent you there. In that regard, the Constitution, you mentioned the Constitution, the 1999 Constitution, people feel alienated from it. And there's enormous agitation across the country for fundamental constitutional change. I'm not talking about cosmetic change, fundamental change. Is that on the cards?
Yes.
In this new sort of spirit that you're talking about?
Yes. Today, we have the Constitution Amendment Committee set up by the Parliament. The Senate President, one in the Senate and one in the House of Representatives. And the one in the House of Representatives is chaired by His Excellency Right Honorable Agbese Ben Kalu. And we have outlined the issues. We came up with a timeline of 2 years to discuss these issues. And we've had 2 or 3 town hall meetings, in another 1 week from now, we'll be meeting again in Uyo, for a retreat to discuss the memorandum.
What I'm asking you is, how fundamental do you think those changes, those constitutional reforms and amendments are going to be? Because already, the committee has already said that, they've already put ouster clauses, haven't they?
No. The 10th House of Representatives is about the masses of our country. And why we are engaging with the masses to go all out, to ensure that Nigerians participate in it, is because we want to have a constitution that will represent the feeling, the aspiration, the thinking of the average Nigerian citizen in Oshodi Isolo. A constitution that will look like the input of Musa in Chibok has been felt in it. We want to have a constitution that the Nigerian people will own up to say, this is our constitution. But beyond that, back to the retreat that just took place. Mr. Speaker, as part of that vision of the Parliament, is that we must have a Parliament that has the input and the imprint of the masses in every engagement, not just about how they feel when these laws and reforms begin to have impact on them, but the fact that in the process of decision making, they're also a part and parcel of it. And again, without setting out to make new laws, new amendments, how do we improve on the existing laws, the existing legislations? And that is exactly what Mr. Speaker is doing. At one end, we have people who do not believe in the correct legislations. Two, we must operate with the existing legislations. If we must operate with them, how do we make these legislations to work for the majority of our citizens?
So part of what you were doing was coming up with strategies, basically,
Yes.
and actions to support the legislation and also the reforms.
Yes. How? Because Mr. President, as the leader of the country and the driver of the executive arm of government, remains the key driver of these programs. And now, as a parliament, we must equally understand that there's a need for synergy, for partnership, and for collaboration. And if we establish these three fulcrum, to move the country forward, how then do we now begin to see the impact of these reforms? So, Mr. Speaker, in his wisdom, identified the issue of tax. And one of the key issues identified after the thematic topics and discussions at the event, the fact that our revenue system as it stands today is majorly from non-oil sector. And what do we do? Because, and we discovered, because we brought in experts, both locally and internationally experts, they all came together. We brainstormed. The beautiful thing is that my colleagues, members of the parliament, are excited because for some of them, some of the issues discussed at the summit was coming to them for the very first time.
Right. So they've learned a lot.
Yes, we learned quite a lot.
So we've got to move on, sort of thing.
Yes.
What is your assessment now of those Tinubu reforms, now that you're seeing them from a better informed perspective?
Good. As a parliament, we identified that these reforms are in the best interest of our constituents. But beyond that, there's also a need for us as a parliament to understand the reforms and for us to contribute to the reforms and for us to own the reforms, because the impact of the reforms will be felt by our constituents across the 360 federal constituencies. And that in doing so, how do we now monitor the reforms in a way and manner? And that brings us to the oversight functions of the parliament. And Mr. Speaker, in his wisdom, has said, this parliament under my leadership must take the issue of oversight very, very seriously. We must monitor the executive to ensure that they deliver on those issues.
Well, it's not just oversighting them. They also expect you to, if you like, participate in the process. Because, I mean, you are Nigerian citizens as well.
Yeah, we're not just participating.
Right.
And that was why, at the end of the summit, we came together as a parliament. We identified 7 key areas on the reforms and issued, a communique adopted by the entire parliament to say these issues must be looked at.
Right. But let's take the area of taxation, for example. You've clearly, I mean, I'm sure you identify that Nigeria is not doing well in sort of in the area of tax revenue. I mean, money that it could be using towards developing the economy is not coming in. So the bottom line is, how do you get more money in? What sort of enabling environment?
Not just that.
Would the National Assembly be able to help to create, to improve the situation?
No, we have identified that. And beyond that, as a people's parliament, a parliament that is interested in economic growth and development, we equally identify the issue of multiplicity in the issue of transaction in the country.
Yes.
And Mr. Speaker, at the end of the retreat, we all agreed that there's a need for us to go back to the hallowed chambers to look at these issues. How do we? Because if we must support the private sector to develop in the interest of the masses, we must also be able to address those issues that hinder the growth and development of our society.
What are those issues? Because as you said, the challenges are there that make it difficult for you, never mind Nigeria, for you as a body to help Nigeria achieve those objectives.
Well, as a parliament, we have not identified anything that hinders us from helping the country to grow and develop economically.
You told us that one of the reasons you held the retreat,
yes,
was to try and infuse in members of the National Assembly this new sense of mission
exactly.
and purpose,
to buy in
which clearly wasn't there before.
Yes, exactly. To buy their understanding, participation, and to ensure that contributions made on the floor of the House on critical issues bordering on the growth and the development of the country are well informed. It is very easy to get the A's and the nays when debates and motions are on ground. How well do the people who are making these contributions? You know very well in academics, it is easier for good and bad students to make choices when the questions are objectives.
Yeah, but
when it comes to debating the issues, in essay writing, you now begin to understand the knowledge of the students.
No, I understand what you mean.
Yes,
but I'm curious to know who attended those retreats. Is it just the new members of the National Assembly? Is it everyone, like people who've been there before and so on?
See, the parliament, once inaugurated, is the parliament, and the current parliament is the parliament of the people. The issue of learning has no respect for age. It has no respect for what in the parliament we call ranking. But the beautiful thing is that 99% of members of the current House attended the retreat. Yeah, but beyond that.
Yeah, but the reason I ask you that.
Yes, beyond that.
Is this, given that legislators in the National Assembly are, for example, the ones who passed the Petroleum Industry Act, the assumption would be that they would have gone through it forensically and thoroughly to understand it before they passed it into law. So why would you start a process again of trying to deepen your understanding of something that Nigerians presume you understood well enough to pass it in the first place?
You see, if we all know everything.
No, it's a straightforward question.
Yes. So if we all know everything, as many people want the world to believe, you know that Nigeria would have been a better place. We have equally, even at elementary study level, my teacher told me that the age of Methuselah has nothing to do with the wisdom of Solomon. When we yes, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas is not the oldest member of the parliament. He's a man that God has blessed with wisdom and has demonstrated
I asked
patriotism.
You a question. You're talking to me about Tajuddin.
Yes,
I'm asking you a straightforward question.
No, I'm going to answer the question.
Right. Well, can you do it quickly because we're running out of time?
Yeah, because you see, what we are experiencing today is not about whether people in the past knew these things or not. It is about patriotism. It is the patriotism being expressed in the leadership.
So the point is that you're trying to, even if they knew before, you're trying to deepen their knowledge.
Yes, we want to deepen it.
Okay.
We want to see it work for the masses of our country.
Right.
And that is exactly what the leadership of Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas exemplifies. And that is why, even at that retreat, we had a good number of members of the civil society at the retreat. I saw senior media executives, your colleagues, who were at the retreat. Nigerian students were at the retreat. Because these issues, the issue of tax reform, the issue of the Petroleum Industry Act, economic development of the country,
Right.
are issues that every serious-minded, patriotic Nigeria must be interested in.
I understand that. Now, you've been in Parliament now for how long? I mean, it's almost a year, isn't it?
Just about a year.
Right, just about a year. So beyond your retreat and your focus on those areas of oil and gas and tax revenue and so on, what has the National Assembly done in the last year or so? I mean, you've talked about the leadership in very glowing terms. What have they done in the last year or so since President Tinubu took office to improve the economic climate in this country, or to help to improve that climate in terms of the laws that it has put in place?
First and foremost, when we came on board as a parliament and elected Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas to serve as the primus inter pares, to lead the parliament, we identified the need for an open parliament. Parliament that is transparent in its dealings. Parliament where accountability, is at the highest level. Parliament that has Nigerians, their electorates, participating in it.
Yeah, but how has that manifested itself? I mean, I know you're talking about broad principles and things that you're trying to adopt, but you've been there for a year. I'm trying to see how that. Let me give you an example,
Please,
a recent example.
Yes.
Because I'm trying to see how, for example, and where the National Assembly has been able to robustly hold the government to account. Let's take fuel scarcity. You were talking about it when you came in. Dismal service delivery there. Everybody can see it, everybody can feel it. Shortages reoccurring every few months. I mean, how have you guys been able to oversight the government to the point where those kinds of things, you can say, well, this is what it was, this is what it now is?
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Yes. You see, when we came on board as a parliament, we were faced with the issue of corruption in the oil and gas sector. And because Mr. President, a very bold and courageous president who took over power and was ready to do anything in the overall interest of the country, decided that the monster called fuel subsidy must be removed. We saw that and the impact of fuel subsidy removal on our citizenry. And as a parliament, we took it upon ourselves to engage the executive to ensure that palliatives were provided, to cushion the effect of the fuel subsidy removal. And in tandem with that, having a president who understands, one who used to be a parliamentarian and knows the power of the parliament, he took immediate steps, to address, some of this negative impact of fuel subsidy removal. And in that we saw, the provision of palliatives across the country. Another very important thing we have done as a parliament is to ensure that the savings from fuel subsidy removal is reinvested. And that is why across the country today, you see, infrastructures, you see roads being built by the government.
Right.
I traveled.
And we see very long petrol queues.
Yes, and you see, as a country where we are today, I will not say that I'm excited about the petrol queues that we see. But again, the proactiveness of the parliament to be able to bring those responsible for that. Right. Ask the necessary questions and to follow up.
Okay.
And that is one area Nigerians, because you see, I participate in a lot of public debates and discussions. And I have interacted with people who have said, Honorable Philip Agbese, please go back to the speaker and thank him for us. We see the impact of what you people are doing there.
Well, I see you're clearly a cheerleader for the speaker, which is fine. I mean, that's part of your job. But I want to thank you very much.
No, it is not about my job. Thank you.
Philip Agbese, you are Deputy Spokesperson of the House of Representatives and member representing the Ado or Badibo or Boku Federal Constituency in Benue State. It's very nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure.
And thank you very much for coming in.